Why am I doing this? What is my purpose? What are my values? And that's what keeps me going. Hello and welcome. Welcome, friends and fellow leaders. I'm so grateful to have you here today. This is the Business of Happiness podcast, and I am your host, Taryn McCarthy, ready to kick off another fire episode today. Thank you so much for joining me last week as we started this discussion about the 3 permissions of personal empowerment. I am so grateful to you for listening last week. It really was a powerful episode and supports so much of what we're hoping to do with this podcast. Really, the mission being marrying true success in life and in business with inner fulfillment and happiness, and trying to find how to have both. How can we be happy and enormously successful all at once and not have to forsake one or the other? Well, last week we talked about the permission to dream, and man, is that a powerful one. I'm so grateful to you for taking the time and for listening and for just being open to thinking a little bit differently, trying to have a different perspective on business and on happiness. And today we're going to continue that conversation with the second of those 3 permissions. Next week, I am very eager to start with our very first interview for the Business of Happiness podcast. I have promised to bring you great leaders who have found a way to infuse happiness and success in their career. And next week is our very first phenomenal Pasha Marlowe. She's a marriage and family therapist who is also the CEO of Roar with Laughter. And she has some great insight in how comedy and laughter has made a big difference with her clients and with her own life in terms of facing trauma, life trauma, illness, depression, and how she uses that in terms of her therapeutic technique, but also how she's found enormous success in her business. So I'm so eager to share that with you. So tune in next week for the very first interview. Today, however, is a very important episode as we continue this discussion about what it takes to be a strong leader. And as I've said before, I really believe that in each and every one of us is a leader, whether you're a leader of a business, a leader of your community, a leader of your family, or simply a leader of your own dreams, which, as we discussed last week, is no small thing. That is such an important one, is giving yourself permission to dream and then giving yourself permission to be a leader of that dream. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Where does that permission come from? We talked about leadership. The most important criteria of leadership, of excellent leadership, is creativity, right? Thinking differently, seeing things in a way that others can't. That's that dream that we talked about. Today, we're going to talk about the second 2 critical aspects of incredible leaders, and that is resilience and courage. It's within each of us. Those tools are within each of us if we give ourselves permission to find and feel them. So the way that resilience speaks to me is that's that falling down and getting back up again. You know, we might have a dream, but we have to give ourselves permission to keep trying, permission to fall, permission to pursue that dream, and yet have things outside of our control happen to us and then continue. That's the resilience piece. And I think resilience is a hot topic right now. We all talk about motivation. Right in there is interwoven resilience. Motivation seems to be what we're all looking for. How do I stay motivated? Whether your dream is to lose a few pounds or create a business or to build a happy family or to work towards retirement, whatever your dream is, we all need and feel the need to stay motivated. But sometimes that motivation is so hard to hold on to. And I think, especially in fitness and in health, there's so many people talking to us about how to stay motivated. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because what I find, at least for myself, is I tend to really beat myself up when I can't, quote unquote, stay motivated. Where is that nugget that keeps you in the game and keeps you focused on what you really want to accomplish? I'll share with you a personal story from my own life, and I haven't shared this on the podcast before, but it's not a secret. I struggled for a while with alcohol. I had a hard time overcoming what I now consider an addiction. And the difficult part for me was that not many other people noticed it. So there wasn't a great amount of outside resources telling me or supporting me in my dream to stop drinking. But, I look back at my journals from years ago, and I'd say there were about 5 years when in my morning journaling practice, which I've done for many years, I would write every day, today's the day I stopped drinking. And I did that for 5 years. Talk about frustration with lack of motivation. I mean, every day I promised myself, and every day I failed. And it was that repeated falling down and trying again and trying again. It actually was really bruising me and my self-confidence. It made me feel like I wasn't able to do this. It made me feel weak. In fact, that was one of the biggest problems, is because I felt so weak, I couldn't overcome this goal of mine. And, I studied a lot about motivation and how to stay motivated and how to face situations outside of your control. And I think that the biggest, most important part of that is understanding your why. That's what helped me really accomplish my dream of stopping drinking. I knew that I couldn't just do casual drinking. I tried that. I had tried only drinking in celebratory situations or only drinking on specific occasions. And for me, that just didn't work. I knew it had to be all or none. And there was no judgment of other people. My husband still, I love to watch him enjoy a martini every now and then or a glass of wine. And so absolutely, some people, this works just fine to enjoy alcohol on occasion. But for me, I knew that wasn't an option. And that was the most difficult part for me, is that I needed to understand what was important to me. This is that second permission. The second permission is permission to honor your own values for yourself. Permission to honor your own values. I had to look deep inside myself and say, what is going on here, without the judgment of others, without worrying about what someone else would think about me, right? Without worrying about someone else's opinion of me, without someone else's definition of my success. When I spoke to people about it, everyone had lots of opinions about how I should address drinking or stopping drinking, and giving me permission that worked for them. Well, maybe you should only drink on the weekends, or why don't you just put it in your plan that you can have one every now and then? Because for that person who was giving me that advice, that person needed that for their value system. It didn't work for me. So the second permission is so critical. It's honoring your own values, permission to honor your own values. And embedded in that permission is loads and loads of shame and stories that we've put on ourselves for our entire lives. This is that part where we've sometimes found ourselves waking up to a success situation that someone else designed for us. Right? That's where so many of us feel so defeated and overwhelmed when we're in a very successful business. It's when we feel like this doesn't suit who we truly are. But instead of acknowledging that, we beat ourselves up and make ourselves feel worse about it. So the permission to honor your own values is just simply taking the time to see what's important to you, not to anybody else. This podcast is a big deal for me. This podcast has been a dream for me. I had to do the same thing. I had to sit down and say, well, let's look. What are my values? Simon Sinek calls this your why. Why? Why you're doing this. This is such a critical part about business development too, and business success. It's the same thing my business partner, Megan Dombrowski, and I did when we were creating Embrace Orthodontics. The very first thing we did was we sat down and said, listen, what are our values? And it's really interesting because when you look at somebody or you speak to somebody and you say, what are your values? The first thing they think is, well, I have a lot of values. I have high values. We all feel like we have high values, and we all really intend to have high values. But have you ever taken the time to sit down and write down what your values are? In fact, I found that when people go through this exercise, they can't even list the first one. The first one, then you start asking yourself, wait a minute, what are our values again? And really, it's up to your own interpretation. There's no limit on values. We actually give this exercise to team members who we're interviewing at Embrace Orthodontics because there's wrapped up in there a whole lot of setting someone else up for success, and it's a great business tool. I highly recommend it. But when we ask people to start listing their values, it's really difficult to do so. So to make it easier for you, I would recommend just start writing every value you can possibly think of. Don't feel like you need to own any of them. Values include things like love and growth and empowerment and specificity and learning and health and family and, nature and conservation and strength and determination. All of those are values. Just start listing them and when you start, you'll suddenly start rattling off many, many more. But then the second part of this exercise is to go back and circle the 5 values that speak most closely to who you are. Kind of the 5 that are the most important. And sometimes you'll find that many of the values are similar, so you can kind of tie one into another. When I've done this exercise, I've found that maybe there are more than 5, but I realized that, honesty is actually a part of integrity, or something like that. So I really recommend doing this exercise because even if you've done it for yourself in the past, chances are your values have changed. And it's interesting because that's also a big part of permitting yourself to honor your values today. What I valued when I was 20 is very different from what I value as when I'm 43. My values have changed. My life has changed. My priorities have changed. So not only is it important to allow yourself to reimagine your values and to honor the values that are important today, but not to feel any pressure from other people's values. Just because your parents had a certain set of values, because your friendship group has a certain set of values, or even the people in your profession or your career. What has made Embrace Orthodontics, my orthodontic practice, so great is we thought differently. We didn't want other orthodontic practices' values on us. We wanted to be the most unique. So we didn't start with other people's values. More important is our own values. And it's so great when you start to identify those values because it makes business decisions so much more clear. This is a powerful tool, and I'd love to talk in another whole episode about it, but how to use your values in business is a game changer in terms of true success and actual money coming into your business and abundance in a bigger way is when you can really focus and hone in on what your values are and then make business decisions from that place. Because not only is that the definition of authenticity in business, but it makes business making decisions so much more clear when you've already established what's most important to you. When stressful things happen, we can't help but become emotional. we can't help but have our judgment clouded by fear or sometimes excitement. And so being able to return to these list of important values is so great because you can do it outside of a place of emotional thinking and really have clarity in terms of what is most important. Whether it's, should I hire this person? Should I work with this bank or this bank? What should I do when the government shuts me down for some reason? All of these are so are situations that are out of our control, but also easy to address when we've established our values. And the same is true for personal issues. If we've established what our values are, then we can go forward from there and leave out all those emotional aspects that cloud our judgment. So, permission to honor your own values. What matters most? And let the judgment go. If you are a high-powered businesswoman and you know that you should have certain values somebody else told you, but really your innermost value is family and quiet time and being with nature, it doesn't matter how successful you are, somebody else's definition of success, if you don't incorporate those values within your own life. You'll never feel fulfillment if those integral parts of your persona are not included in your design of success, in your dream of success for yourself. That's where it's so important to find out what matters most to you. Because it's true, you have the power to create your own reality, but what do you want that reality look like and why? Why is it so important to you? When you're struggling to get out of bed in the morning to go to the gym, it doesn't matter what someone else has told you, the threats, the carrots, the sticks, it doesn't matter. The only thing that's going to get you out of bed at 4:30 in the morning is going back to your values and reminding yourself of them. And that's what helped me overcome alcoholism for myself, something that was a dream of mine. And now I've been almost 4 years sober, but only because I had to figure out why, what was so important to me. What was it that tugged at my heartstrings that made me value that dream? I knew I had the dream. My dream was I didn't want to drink anymore. I couldn't have been more clear with myself. But until I really felt it, until I really recognized how important that was to my values. And one of my values is being a great parent. That was the piece. Believe it or not, that was the piece. Of course, I have a value of growth and of health, and those are so important to me. But the one that really plucked at my heartstrings was the parenting piece. And when I realized how I was teaching my children to handle stress and overwhelm, and that I was showing them that having a glass of wine was how you handled a tough day. I was showing them that being able to connect with your husband required a martini. Those things I couldn't tolerate anymore. And when I dug right in and realized, oh, this is my true value, this is my why, that made it easy. I've never had a desire to go back and have a single drop of alcohol, honestly, because every day I remind myself of my purpose. And the same is true for business. It doesn't matter. Coronavirus can come. The government can lock us down. I have a purpose. I know what the purpose is for my business. This podcast, this is scary. We get in our own heads about judgment from other people. But in order for me to give you this content every week, in order for me to put my face on video and my voice on audio and to put it out in the world for possible judgment from others, I have to go back and figure out, why am I doing this? What is my purpose? What are my values? And that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me staying vulnerable, staying brave. And that's where we come to our third permission, and that is involved with courage. When we've defined our dream, when we've established what matters most to us, our purpose, our why, Now, the third permission is the permission to pursue. This is the beautiful blending of the first two permissions. You can't have the third permission without valuing those first two. It's permission to try. It's permission to stumble and fall and get up again because you know what the dream is and you have given yourself permission to honor that dream because it speaks to your innermost values. The permission to try, the permission to pursue. Now you're backed up. In order to follow through with this dream, now you're backed up because you already have the dream, you have the picture in your head, you've painted that portrait, maybe you've made a vision board, maybe you've journaled it and you've created a very clear dream for yourself. You've given yourself permission to rethink that dream and allowed old dreams to fall away. And then you've been very clear on why it matters most to you. Let judgment fall away. That's a hard one. I know it's easy to say, but let judgment fall away. Not just other people's judgment, but your own. We come back to that saying of that I mentioned last week of being so concerned about what other people think I'm thinking. I think I'm worried about something that you're thinking about what I'm thinking. It's a ridiculous game. Rather, allowing yourself to have the strength of knowing that how you feel is actually most important to your own dream. So giving yourself permission just to try and to embark on that journey. And let me tell you, when you do so, how fulfilling that is. Man, does that feel good. Because what you've done is you've spoken to those innermost desires and not tried to fulfill somebody else's desires, but really recognizing what's most valuable to you. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the three permissions. I could speak for hours about it. We could keep talking about this, and I will definitely work on a course to put forth to make available to you if this is of interest to you. I'll tell you, it's been a complete game changer in my life. It's been hugely valuable in the success of my business, hugely valuable in my own dreams and goals of my own life. And as I shared with you, it's made real impact not only on my life, but on the lives of others around me. Because when you do good, you can only do good when you feel good. When you feel good, you can do good. And I believe that so powerfully. So thank you again for joining me this week. I am so eager to bring to you some laughter next week in next week's episode as we talk to Pasha Marlowe and find out how she's incorporated comedy into healing from trauma. And until next week, remind yourself today and every day that today is going to be a great day. Let that be the dream for the day. Let that be the intent for today. Let today be a great day. And I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.